I want to step back for a moment, away from the narrative, and let's look at the mechanics. Let's look at the DNA of board gaming. This idea in general of game theory, how there are times where you go to the board gaming club or with your friends and someone brings a new title, something that you've never played before. You get a brief introduction to the rules, and from that point forward, where do you go? What tactical decisions do you make? The difference of a title that you regularly play, you understand the mechanics. You've explored some scenarios. You know the different combinations. You can build that tactica. But for those times where it's your first play, and maybe it's a competitive type game or a co-op where you're pulling your weight with the rest of the team, understanding these fundamentals, understanding basic game principles can help you make those decisions where you're not that sure what to do. And there's these various kind of DNA generic board gaming principles that if we can keep in mind, they're going to give you that edge. Okay, we've got that framework. And what inspired me to post this Tactica vlog up to the board gaming playlist here was recently we were playing a game of Talisman with some friends. And as we go through that game, you acquire various cards. Your character acquires cards. They might be magic objects. They might be followers. They might be spells. And they allow you to interact with the game. There is a limit to the number of objects that you can carry, magic objects. This can be increased by a mule or a backpack of holding or perhaps followers. But that limit is ever present. And sometimes you have to make choices to give something up. Other times as you navigate through the game and events, something might pop up where it says you have to get rid of or discard a magic object. What do you do? So we had kind of an interesting scenario where a player needed to decide what to get rid of. And this was further amplified by Talisman. And I pushed up some Tactica for that game up to the Talisman playlist. You are competing against other players to make it to the center of the table to claim the crown of command. And all of us were about equal. I mean, sometimes a player will pull ahead. Sometimes you kind of lag behind. But we were all neck and neck, and we were all getting ready to make the run for the crown of command. So these decisions, all of us that we had to make, while they might seem minuscule, they were very, very important. So the player made the decision. We played out the game. After the game, we kind of backtracked, and the player said to me, well, Fritz, what would you do? How would you handle this? And which object would you have discarded? They said. And I said, this is a tough call, because if we're talking about the game theory right here, you know the objects that you have. You can see them face up. In Talisman, all the objects are face up. Followers are face up. Everyone can see them. You see what I have. But there are some cards that you don't see, meaning spells are face down. So the spells interact with the various objects and with the various encounters and the various players. So if I need to discard an object, I need to also weigh the hidden information. What spells do my opponents have? Is this object helping me? Is it protecting me from spells? Is it going to give me an advantage? And I don't even really know what spells they have, because you draw random spells from a deck. So I could be sitting on 4 spells that are extremely potent, and I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting for that moment to unleash them on you. Or they could just be absolute garbage spells, and I can't cast them fast enough, and I want to get rid of them so I can draw some more spells. You really don't know. You kind of have to get a feel of that. So I thought this was a great opportunity to have some game theory and explore to make that decision. So this is from the lens of Talisman, but capturing this principle and applying it to other games. So they have your base character. It's got some stats, got some strength, got some craft, got some life. These go up and down as you go through the game. Obviously, the higher strength, the higher craft, the more powerful, leveled up your character is. The more life, the more you'll live. Get to 0 life and you're dead. There are objects that can increase your strength or your craft by +1. And that is a constant effect. So I grab a sword, I get a +1 to my strength. I've got a magic spell blade, +1 strength and +1 craft. I've got a belt of strength, +1 to my strength. These +1s are constant. They are always in effect, regardless of the situation, as long as I have that object. Then there are some consumables, potions. They're going to give me +1 strength or +2 strength for the duration of this combat, or a special item that would allow me to add my craft to my strength one time for combat. These consumables can also be a +1, or they can be a lot more powerful. But since they're consumables, the effects are not always on. You have to kind of wait for the timing. Now, of course, this is part game balance and part choice. And then there are followers. While they're not items, while these followers are in play, they'll give you a +1. An example would be like if you have the unicorn as a follower, +1 craft. It's a consistent +1 as long as the follower is in play. So in exploring this, generally speaking, the first kind of entry point is I want to keep any attributes, any cards, any magic objects that are consistent. So that sword or that magic sword with that +1 to strength or +1 strength, +1 craft, that is always in effect. I don't know what the next encounter is going to be. I don't know the next space that I enter and I draw an encounter card, what that's going to be. But by always having that +1, that is persistent. Now, the advantages of a kind of consume a potion and get, D6 plus D6 strength, that's massive. It's a one-time use. I'd like to hold on to that too, because there might be a chance to utilize that to beat an encounter and get experience or get loot way beyond where I am in the moment. But if I have to pick which one to get rid of, generally speaking, I will discard the non-persistent one because that is always in effect. Now, in terms of followers, if I have a choice between a follower or an object, going back to the game mechanics, followers, you can lose followers easier than you can lose objects. So if I had a +1 for both, then I would lose the follower and I would keep that sword. So in applying this game theory, and again, we're just using talisman as an illustration, if I have to make a decision on what to keep or what to discard, if there are persistent effects, constant effects, I want to keep those. If it's a temporary effect or a very situational effect, that is what I will discard. So this idea is probably about 10 or 15 points, and we're going to explore some more. I'm going to push those up to the board gaming playlist. This idea of general dice-based board game mechanics that no matter what title you find yourself in, having them as an action point, as a checkpoint to explore, then as you learn the game and you get through a lot of plays and you drill down to specific tactica, you'll be able to bolt in and leverage that.